All right, buckle up, because today we're tackling a literary titan that's as famous for its genius as it is for, well, making people scratch their heads. We are diving deep into James Joyce's Ulysses.
Mm-hmm.
It's often called a masterpiece, and just as often described as, notoriously difficult.
That it is.
So our mission today is to give you the shortcut, basically, to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from this towering work without getting bogged down in its legendary complexity.
Yeah, and Ulysses, first published back in 1922, it isn't just a book, it's like a seismic event in literary history. It completely reshaped the conventions of narrative, language, structure, everything, really.
Right.
Its influence continues to inspire awe, lots of debate, and yes, sometimes that feeling of, let's say, profound intellectual challenge.
Right.
So for this deep dive, we've drawn from a pretty comprehensive review of Ulysses to guide our exploration, just to make sure we unpack its most crucial elements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why this deep dive is for you, whether you're intensely curious, maybe prepping for a meeting where Ulysses might get name dropped.
It happens all the time.
Or just looking for those genuine aha moments that make these complex topics click. So let's unpack this. What exactly is Ulysses at its core?
Okay, well, at its core, Ulysses chronicles a single day.
Just one day.
Just one. Specifically, June 16th, 1904, in the life of Leopold Bloom as he simply wanders through Dublin.
Huh. It sounds almost mundane, doesn't it?
It does, on the surface. But what gives that single day such epic weight is its classical inspiration.
Yeah.
The novel explicitly parallels Homer's Odyssey.
Oh, okay. The Odyssey.
Right. So Leopold Bloom, our protagonist, he embodies Odysseus, Ulysses. Stephen Dedalus, who's this younger intellectual figure, he mirrors Telemachus, the sun. And Molly Bloom, Leopold's wife, she echoes Penelope. And this isn't just like a loose inspiration, no. No, each of the book's 18 episodes corresponds, sometimes playfully, sometimes quite profoundly, to an episode from the Odyssey.
Okay, so rather than being action-driven like you might expect from an epic,
right,
the narrative is intensely internal, psychological.
Exactly. We're talking about events like Stephen giving a philosophy lesson, Bloom attending a funeral, or this really surreal, almost hallucinatory journey through Dublin's red light district later on.
So what's truly fascinating here is why? Why would Joyce choose to focus on just one single day for such an epic parallel? What's the insight in that decision?
Well, it's precisely because he wanted to elevate the mundane, to find the epic within the ordinary, Oh,
okay.
By compressing the huge scope of the Odyssey into just 24 hours in Dublin, Joyce suggests that every human life, every single day, holds that kind of epic potential and profound psychological depth.
So he's saying the biggest journeys aren't always across oceans.
Exactly. Sometimes they're within our own minds, just on a walk through a city we know well.
That's a powerful idea. But to really get this incredibly rich interior world, we need to understand who inhabits it. So let's meet the three central characters, the ones who are really the heart of the novel.
Absolutely. First, there's Leopold Bloom. He's the central everyman figure.
Okay.
He's introspective, often feels like an outsider, but is also deeply sensual and incredibly human. His quiet endurance, his sort of compassion, his emotional complexity, it really makes him one of literature's most beloved and actually relatable characters.
Despite the complexity of the book itself.
Despite the complexity, yeah. Then we have Stephen Dedalus.
Right, Telemachus.
The Telemachus figure. He's a brooding, intellectually tortured young man, very much the modern artist type, grappling with big ideas about art, philosophy, identity. He's often seen as Joyce's semi-autobiographical alter ego, actually.
Oh, interesting.
And he serves as a kind of philosophical and artistic foil to Bloom.
Okay, and
finally, Molly Bloom, Leopold's wife. She is this vibrant, earthy presence, very much rooted in the physical world.
Penelope.
The Penelope figure, yes. And her monologue in the final chapter, Penelope, it's truly revolutionary. It's candor, it's sensuality. It offers this incredibly rich, unfiltered exploration of female consciousness that was just groundbreaking for its time.
So we had this fascinating trio, Bloom, Stephen, Molly. What, in your view, is the most crucial emotional dynamic at play? How does it develop between them?
That's a great question. I'd argue the most crucial dynamic is the surrogate father-son relationship that subtly develops between Bloom and Stephen.
Ah, okay. Not blood-related, but...
Not at all. But they're both searching, Bloom is sort of mourning a lost son. Stephen is looking for a mentor, a father figure. And their eventual, albeit quite brief, connection offers this profound moment of quiet understanding, a kind of solace in a world that often alienates both of them.
Finding connection in unlikely places.
Exactly. It's about finding meaning there.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, at least for me. Joyce doesn't just tell a story. He completely revolutionizes narrative technique itself.
He really does.
We're talking stream of consciousness, interior monologue, free indirect discourse, even like outright parody. For listeners new to some of these terms, what exactly are we talking about here? Can you break those down a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So when we say stream of consciousness, think of it like being literally inside a character's head.
Okay.
You're experiencing their raw, unfiltered thoughts as they flow, sometimes disjointed, sometimes profound, just like real thinking, random associations, memories popping up.
Got it. And interior monologue. Similar,
yeah, but often a bit more structured, like a soliloquy, but happening purely inside the mind, maybe a bit more coherent than pure stream of consciousness.
Okay. And free indirect discourse. That sounds trickier.
It's subtler, yeah. Imagine the narrator subtly echoing a character's thoughts and feelings without explicitly saying he thought or she felt. It kind of blends the narrator's voice with the character's perspective, almost like you're tuning into their subconscious directly. It's a very clever technique.
Right, and parody is just making fun of other styles.
Well, sometimes making fun, but also sometimes just playfully imitating other literary styles to evoke a specific feeling or make a point about language itself.
So he's deploying all these techniques, and each chapter is often like a masterclass in stylistic experimentation. Can you give us some concrete examples? How does he play with this chapter by chapter?
Absolutely. It's one of the most famous aspects. The Proteus chapter, for instance, that's early on. It's just this dense philosophical stream of Stephen's thoughts as he walks along the beach. Very interior.
Okay.
Then you get chapter like Sirens, which famously mimics musical form.
Musical form in prose.
Yeah, with repetitions, themes, motifs. It's structured almost like an operatic overture, trying to capture the sound and feeling of music through words.
Wow.
Later, in Oxen of the Sun, set in a maternity hospital, the language itself evolves. It actually traces the entire history of the English language.
Entire history?
Well, yeah, starting with like Latinate prose, moving through Old English styles, Chaucer, Malory, Restoration comedy, Dickens, all the way up to contemporary slang.
In one chapter?
In one chapter. It's mirroring the development of the fetus in the hospital with the development of language. It's ambitious.
That sounds incredibly difficult to read.
It is. It's challenging, but it's like this compressed history of human thought reflecting how ideas and consciousness evolve through language. And it forces you to experience the very malleability of meaning.
Okay. And then Molly's chapter.
And of course, Penelope, the final chapter. That's Molly's iconic, unpunctuated, flowing monologue. 8 massive sentences, just pure flowing thought and sensation, a real tour de force of female interiority.
It's a lot to take in, and it's certainly part of the challenge, right, for readers. But these stylistic shifts, they are deliberate, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely deliberate.
They're meant to mimic the actual rhythms of thought, memory, perception.
Precisely.
It almost feels like Joyce is saying, look, a novel can be a direct, unfiltered portal right into the human mind itself.
That's a great way to put it.
What stands out to you most about these wild structural choices?
Yeah.
How do they really enhance the experience, assuming a reader is willing to engage?
Well, what stands out is that these aren't just, literary acrobatics for the sake of it. Joyce uses them to fundamentally collapse the distance between the reader and the character.
Collapse the distance?
Yeah, you're not just reading about Bloom or Stephen. For moments, you are effectively living inside their consciousness. It creates this unparalleled intimacy, this sometimes uncomfortable realism that forces you to engage with the text on a deeply intellectual and almost visceral level. It transforms reading from passive reception into an active, almost participatory experience.
Okay, so while Joyce was revolutionizing how a story could be told, he was simultaneously packing this single day with incredibly profound themes that still resonate today.
Definitely.
What are some of the major threads woven throughout Ulysses?
It really is brimming with meaning. I mean, one major theme is identity and alienation. Bloom's status as an outsider, ethnically Jewish in Catholic Dublin, socially awkward, even in his own marriage, it powerfully reflects the alienation, that sense of otherness of modern man searching for belonging in a, crowded, indifferent city.
Makes sense. What else?
Then there's time and history. The novel's intense focus on a single day, June 16th, plays powerfully with the whole epic idea of time. It shows the profound depth that can be found in the mundane present.
Finding the epic in the ordinary, like you said.
Exactly. While also constantly referencing layers of historical and mythical past, particularly the Odyssey, of course, we also see language and consciousness as absolutely central. The book relentlessly examines how language constructs our identity, shapes our reality. It pushes the boundaries of how a novel can even represent thought itself, how words shape both our inner and outer worlds.
And the style reflects that directly.
Directly, yes. And finally, you can't ignore sexuality and desire. Joyce handles this with remarkable candor for the time.
Right, it got him into trouble.
It did. He openly portrays eroticism, bodily functions, human vulnerability, really breaking taboos and offering an unvarnished look at the full spectrum of human experience, warts and all.
These feel incredibly contemporary. Identity, alienation, time, consciousness, sexuality. Why do these themes resonate so powerfully, you think, even a century later? It feels like they're just as relevant now as they were in 1904 or 1922.
Well, I think it's because the core human experiences Joyce explores, that search for connection, the feeling of being an outsider, the complexity of our inner lives, the raw reality of our bodies and desires. These are timeless, aren't they?
Yeah.
Ulysses shows us the universal and the specific. It uses one man's day, one city, to explore the fundamental questions of what it means to be human in a modern, often isolating world. And those questions haven't gone away. That's why it continues to speak to new generations.
So its literary significance then must be immense.
Oh, absolutely immense. Ulysses completely changed the trajectory of modern fiction. It took that Homeric inspiration and transformed it into something entirely new. An urban psychological epic. It influenced generations of writers after him. I mean, giants like Virginia Woolf, Samuel Beckett, Faulkner, Salman Rushdie. The list goes on. You can see its fingerprints everywhere in 20th century literature.
A work this revolutionary, this different, it surely sparked debate, even controversy, beyond just the themes, especially early on, before it became the established classic.
You're absolutely right. It was highly controversial. Ulysses was famously the subject of obscenity trials.
Obscenity trials.
Yes, especially here in the U.S. There was the notable United States v. 1 book called Ulysses Case in 1933. Critics and censors were particularly offended by its candid portrayal of sexuality and, frankly, just bodily functions, things people didn't write about them.
Stuff we wouldn't even blink at now, maybe.
Much of it, yeah. But for the time, it was deemed shocking, obscene. The book was banned in several countries for years.
And what was the outcome of those trials? Did they succeed in suppressing it?
Well, those trials, controversial as they were, ultimately helped shape literary freedom. They challenged censorship laws.
So a positive outcome in the long run.
A positive outcome, definitely. The court's decision here in the U.S. by Judge Woolsey, it essentially cleared the way for the book's legal publication and distribution. It was a landmark ruling, a significant victory for artistic expression over censorship. It has a powerful legal legacy as well as a literary one.
But let's be honest, we can't talk about Ulysses without addressing the common criticisms head on. People still find it incredibly hard.
No question.
It's notoriously difficult. Those erudite references you mentioned, the fragmented syntax, the constantly shifting styles, it can overwhelm even seasoned readers. Plus some chapters, like maybe Oxen of the Sun or the hallucinatory Circe chapter, they can feel tedious or just frustrating without a lot of background knowledge or, frankly, a guide.
That's fair. They demand a lot.
And then there's that argument that Joyce wrote for an elite reader,
Yeah.
that he prioritized form over readability, almost daring you to finish it. Is that fair?
It's an understandable reaction, definitely. Look, our review's final verdict gives Ulysses a 9.5 out of 10, which is huge.
Very high.
But it explicitly notes that this is not a book one simply reads. It's a book one experiences, one deciphers, and often one revisits multiple times.
Right.
So while it may not always be enjoyable in the traditional sense, like a light beach read.
Definitely not a beach read.
Definitely not. But its intellectual brilliance, its deep emotional resonance, and its sheer formal innovation truly provide an unmatched literary reward. It's like climbing a mountain.
A literary Everest, perhaps.
Exactly, a literary Everest. For readers willing to engage deeply, willing to put in the effort, it offers an unparalleled journey, an unmatched view from the summit.
So there you have it, a single day's journey through Dublin that somehow becomes this massive revolution in literature, packed with unforgettable characters, profound themes. From Bloom's quiet endurance and humanity, to Stephen's intellectual struggles, to Molly's groundbreaking, uncensored monologue, Ulysses really is a world unto itself.
It truly is. And thinking about that Everest idea, given its challenges, its profound rewards, its enduring reputation, what does it truly mean for a work to be considered like that? What kind of unique understanding or experience can you, the listener, gain from engaging with a text that demands such deep intellectual and emotional investment? That's something worth pondering.
A fantastic question to leave you with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the challenging but ultimately rewarding world of James Joyce's Ulysses.